you may find just one man. So it's not as common as in men. So what is this cancer of the breast? It is just any cancer at all. When the cells in that breast start multiplying in an abnormal way, it start multiplying, it starts increasing in a very abnormal way. You see, normally, we all have DNAs, and it does its work. It tells the cells, okay, so it's time for you to start increasing, it's time for you to start growing, it's time for you to start multiplying, it's time for you to die, and then another cycle begins. So that's a normal cycle. But the thing about cancer is that it disturbs that DNA pattern. So instead of it following that trend, it just tells it, oh yeah, continue to multiply. So it continues to multiply in a very abnormal way, such that even the normal cells will now die and the abnormal cells take over. Can you imagine? So any cancer you see happening anywhere, that is actually what happens. Let me make it that simple. So in cancer of the breast, any cancer occurring in the breast, and we know what the breast is, what causes it? We don't know. We don't know. But we know there are some things called risk factors. What did I say? Risk factors. So that means that this thing, because it's there, is likely to cause breast cancer. Because this thing is in this person has a tendency to having breast cancer. So we want to know these risk factors, Abi. Number one, because we are females. So that means that the fact that this individual is female, she has the tendency of having breast cancer. That's the number one risk. Another thing is age. So the older one becomes, the likely the tendency. Sure, we are still together. Age. Another thing is family history. Remember I was talking about some genes, about hair. So there are some genetic predisposition. There are some genes, breast cancer carrying genes. So if that person has it, the tendency is there to have breast cancer later. So let's get closer. Any individual, any woman, any girl that has had breast cancer in one breast, there's a tendency that she may have breast cancer in the other breast. So that's another risk factors. So I've spoken about family. Mommy had breast cancer. So firstborn, Shola, has a high risk of having breast cancer because she's female and then cancer runs in the family. That's another risk. Another risk that may interest you is women or girls that start their menstruation early. They start menstruating before they become 12 years old. Menstruation starts age 10, age 9. They've started menstruating. Such a girl has a risk of developing breast cancer later in the future because she got exposed to that hormone early in life. Then, of course, it stands to reason another risk is women that don't attain menopause early. We know what menopause is, Abi. That don't stop menstruating early, menopause. So at age 55, they are still menstruating. Age 57, they are still menstruating. So they also have that risk of developing breast cancer. Then this one, all those babes, women that don't want to breastfeed. My husband said my breast will become flabby. My husband said my breast will become like a slippers. By the time that thing starts, the husband may not be there. So women that do not breastfeed their babies or otherwise, the important thing is to breastfeed. So don't say I am not going to breastfeed my baby because my husband does not want it. The more you breastfeed, the better for you, the less likely the risk. Do we understand? Okay. So another one is women women who don't start having children early in life, they don't start giving birth early, age 35. Or women that don't even give birth, age 35, maybe 37. That's when they start having their first child, their firstborn. So the tendency of developing cancer of the breast is there. But one thing I want us to know is that irrespective of all those risk factors I've mentioned, there are people with these risk factors that don't have breast cancer. Happy now? Yes. So there are females. One of the risk factors is because I'm a girl, because I'm a woman. It doesn't mean I'm going to have breast cancer. So these risk factors may be there, but they may not come down with breast cancer. That sounds good, Abby. However, there are also some that do not really have these risk factors, but they still come down with breast cancer. They breastfeed. They didn't start their menstruation too early, normally. They attain menopause at a normal age, but they still have breast cancer. So that's why we call it risk factors. We know that if these risk factors are there, the tendencies are high. Then also some women that use some particular types of birth control pills, family planning pills, for too long. Please mark my words. I did not say family planning causes breast cancer. Because some people now, they will go and open the door and they will continue to have children. They will say it's one Dr. Shufola that said we should continue. I've not said that. I just said women that use a particular type. That means there are different types of family planning methods. But there's a particular one that if you use it for too long, it may cause or predispose to breast cancer. So having said all of this, what are the symptoms? How do we know that this thing is likely to be breast cancer? And how we will know is by looking and by feeling or touching. By doing what? Looking or by yes or touching. So we want to start with looking, Abby. So you look at your breast and then looking at those breasts. We know that one breast is usually bigger, but some people may not even know. It's not an obvious thing. It's not something that you just see. But if you look at those breasts and you see that one is appearing obviously bigger than the other one. This left breast, so she want to be by. Why is it this big? That may just be it. Still looking, Abby. We are still looking. I'm going to ask some people. Some people will tell me what I've said. Because we need to know it. Still looking. You look at the breast. How many of us know oranges? Do we know oranges? And we know the peel of an orange. A croissant. We know it. If you look at that breast and the skin looks like the peel of an orange, that may just be it. You know, oranges have these holes. And then at times it looks shining. It's thick. If the skin of that breast is looking that way, suspect that breast. So we are still looking. And you look at that breast and you see that the nipple, one nipple, or the two nipples, the nipple is inside, is inverted. We call them inverted nipple. It's as if there's something inside that has pulled it inside. Instead of the nipple to be outside and standing, is withdrawn inside. Inverted nipple, suspect that breast. So we have said we have looked, Abby. What did we look out for? The size, yes, correct? Exactly, the nipple. The skin, yes. Looking with your eyes. So now we want to touch. And then when you now touch the breast, and then I will tell us how to touch. And then you feel something like a lump in that breast, suspect that nipple. And that is why you have to be familiar with your breast. You have to know what your normal breast looks like, what your normal breast feels like, so that by the time you look and you see that this thing is not looking like my breast, you start suspecting. By the time you touch and you're like, this thing is looking new in my breast, I don't feel this thing normally, you suspect that breast. So when we touch and we see something like a lump, suspect the breast. And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop at the breast. The armpits. You touch your armpits and you are feeling something like a lump, suspect that breast. Then still touching. If you press the nipple and you see a bloody discharge, please run to the hospital. You press the nipple and there's a bloody discharge, suspect the breast. So these are the symptoms, things that we can look out for. Or if anybody tells you, Fore, do you know that yesterday I saw one lump in my breast? Don't tell that friend that, what you get at last. Ma worry, no. Just tell that friend, let us go to the hospital. Because once upon a time, one doctor came to our church and told us that if we feel a lump in our breast, it's not about an attack, that we should suspect so. So let's go to the hospital. Sure, we will be doing that, Abi. So how do we make a diagnosis? How do we know that, yes, so this thing may be breast cancer? There are 3 things, but one of them is our business here. The first one is breast examination. What did I say? Yes, breast examination. And that one is what I want us to be doing. The second is imaging. Imaging, breast scan, mammogram. Have we heard about that before? When they say somebody wants to go for a mammogram, yes, or an MRI. And the third is biopsy. Now, leave all those ones. The one that is for us, breast examination. There are 2 types. You can do a self-breast examination. What did I call it? Who knows what that means? Self-breast examination.
Press it yourself all the time.
By yourself. Self-breast examination. I want to examine my breast by myself. That's the first one. The second one is clinical breast examination. That means you carry your whole breast to the hospital, to the doctor or to the nurse, and you say, doctor, I want to check my breast. So, clinical breast examination. Shall we are following? Okay. So, the self-breast examination, that's the one you want to do by yourself. How do you do it? All of us, we are going to do it. So, the way you are seated, you are going to divide your breast in your brain into 4. How many of us have done that? Just imagine you are looking at your breast. Because you can do it in front of a mirror. Or you do it lying down. Or you do it in the bathing room when you are bathing. But imaginarily, you divide that breast into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have done that, Abi. So if you are in front of a mirror, or you are lying down, or you are in the bedroom, what you do is that if you want to check the right breast first, you put your right hand at the back of your head. If you choose to lie down, you lie down and you still do the same thing. Do you understand? Remember what we said. How do we start? By looking. We want to look. So what do we want to look out for? The size. Is there any change in size of this breast? So you look at your breast. This left breast, is it bigger than the right? Is it obviously bigger than the left? Or you put your 2 hands and you chest out so that it can come out very well. So you now want to look at the size, just as you have rightly said. So if it is not obviously bigger, what else do we want to see? The skin. Thank you. So you look at the skin. Is it looking like an orange? Is it looking different? Is it shining? Is there any difference in the skin of my breast? You look at that. What else do you want to look at? The nipple. So are my two nipples standing out? Or is any of this nipple retracted in? So we have seen, Abby, and everything is normal. So we now want to do what? Touch. We want to touch. So having divided it into 4, you start from quadrant 1. You use the palm of your hand. Don't use the palm. This is the palm. Don't use the palm. You know, some of us, we keep very long nails. So you can't use that palm. Then we don't want you to injure yourselves. Then we don't want to miss that lump. Because if you use the palm, you can miss the lump. So you use the palm. We are in quadrant 1. So you just go in a circular motion. This means you don't examine the whole breast at once. You don't touch. You touch in quadrants. We have divided into 4 quadrants. So using the palm, quadrant 1, you just move this way. If there's anything in that quadrant, it will come under. You will feel it under the palm. So if you have done quadrant 1, you move to quadrant 2, and you do the same thing. You move to quadrant 3, you do the same thing. You move to quadrant 4, and you do the same thing. And then you go to the nipple, you press. Is blood coming out? Is that simple? Is it not simple? It's simple now. So you must examine your breast by yourself. So when you finish with the left breast, you go to the right breast. Quadrants 1, 2, 3, 4, nipple. We understand it that far. When you now finish with the 2 breasts, you now go to your armpit. You touch your armpit. Touch your armpit to see if there is what? Any lump. By the time you have done that, you have finished that self-breast examination. And we encourage you to do this at least once a month. Every month, just once in 30 days or in 31 days. Just once. But there's a time when we want you to do it. We don't want you to do it when you are menstruating. Because we know that during menstruation, your breast is fuller. It may appear a little bit painful. It may be a little bit bigger. So you may get wrong results. So we always advise, do it like 5 days after menstruation, when the breast would have gone back to its normal size, its normal shape, is no longer painful. So, examine your breasts at least when? Once a month, after 5 days after your menstruation. Do we understand? That is self-breast examination. So for those of us that do not examine our breasts normally, when you get home today, examine your breast. Okay? Very easy. Just divide into 4. Go quadrant by quadrant. Remember to check your nipple and your armpits. So the clinical breast examination, that's the one we doctors do for you. Or the ones that the nurses will do for you, the health workers. And there are some other things we like to look for that you may not really be able to look for. Like we want to check your collarbones. We are also looking for lumps. We check around here, check around there. There are some other little things that we look out for. But as simple as it is, self-breast examination, please do it. So if we now see anything, there is imaging. That means we can say go for a breast scan. We want to be sure that this thing inside truly, this lump is an abnormal lump. It's not a normal breast duct or a normal breast tubercle. So you can go for a breast scan. But another important screening one is the mammogram. And it's very important. In fact, we encourage everybody, at least once in 2 years, do a mammography. Go for a mammogram. Because what the mammogram does is that it is able to detect any abnormality in the breast even before it develops. So you can see why it is important. It is able to detect it. Now, that's a screening mammogram. Then there's something we call a diagnostic mammogram. That if that screening mammogram detected that there's something that is not normal in this breast, then we'll go for a diagnostic mammogram. That one is more certain. That one will now focus on the place where the first one picked an abnormality. So that's imaging. Then the last one, biopsy. That one is our own business. Okay, so this breast, oh, there's a lump. So we will go and take a sample of that lump and then take it to the lab. And we will say, help us check, oh, this lump, are the cells there abnormal? So the results of that biopsy helps us to treat. Any abnormal breast lump must come out. It must be removed. Because that lump can be benign. Benign means that it's gentle. It just stays where it was discovered. May not really be, But a malignant lump will go out of where it was discovered and start affecting other tissues. That's why some people, after they do a breast lump, especially young women, and then they take it for histology, they come and tell us, no, it's just a fibroadenoma, don't bother yourself. But that lump must not remain in that breast. No breast lump should be in the breast. It's very important. Because one of the tricky things about it is that these lumps, they are usually not painful. They are not painful when they start. So the person may just be like, Shebi ko do me. It's not paining me. Jowo, let me just leave it alone. It's not disturbing me. It's dangerous. They are usually not painful. That's one tricky thing about them. So no breast lump, as long as it is not something that you usually feel in your breast, you just suddenly discovered it, it must come out. It must do what? It must come out. So that is the thing about breast cancer. And the thing about any cancer at all, early detection is best prevention. The earlier we detect it, the better. The earlier you are able to pick an abnormal breast lump, the better. Because the life expectancy is now increased. Before, they used to say 2-5 years, the person is gone. No, it has increased significantly now. Do we understand? Because it was detected early and it was addressed and managed early. So that's the thing about breast cancer. Now, I will go to cancer of the cervix. Cancer of the where now? You see that cervix? Some of us may not know. But when we want to give, when we are in labor, that thing that your nurses check, that place that the doctors check, and they continue to say it's 2 cm, it's 4 cm, it's 5, it's all those cm. That place is the cervix. That's where we call the cervix. So it's like the neck of what you call womb, what we call uterus, where the baby will pass out through the vagina, then outside into the world. So that is where we call cervix. And cancer can occur there. And it is one of the most dreadful cancers in women. It kills. But today we are going to know a little about it, and then we will spread the good news, Habi. So this cancer, what causes it? We know that there's one organism. Forget about the name, I will tell you, but you don't need to cram it. We call it human papilloma virus. It's a virus, HPV for short. virus is the one, is the one that we know causes cancer of the cervix. And how does anybody get that virus? You want to know? Through sexual intercourse. So, that virus is one virus that enters into the body through sexual intercourse. HPV virus. And it is a known cause of cancer of the cervix that we want to talk about. But of course, it's not everybody that has it that comes down with cancer of the cervix. But there are some risk factors. Just as we spoke about risk factors for cancer of the breast, there are risk factors for this one too. So one of the risk factors is the fact that we are what? We were women. Thank you very much, ma. The fact that we are women is one of the risk factors. Can another person get a risk factor? Sexual, exactly. Thank you very much, sir. The fact that we will have sex is a risk factor. Because I've told us that that virus is a sexually transmitted virus. So the fact that we are going to have sex is a risk factor for developing cancer of the cervix. So I tell us the other risk factors. Girls, women that start their sexual life early. And it is such a sad thing. We see 8-year-olds already sexually active. 10-year-olds. You see 13, 14-year-olds in antenatal clinic. So women that start their sexual life early is a risk factor. Women who have repeated sexually transmitted infection is a risk factor. Women who have more than one sexual partner. I have Bayo. I have Joseph. I have Emmanuel. I have Yisa. It's a serious risk factor. Likewise, women who get married more than once. And it also stands to reason because you are already having multiple sexual partners. Is a risk factor. Then even women, let's now assume that the woman is respecting herself, but her husband has a risky sexual life. So that is another risk factor. Women who also have plenty children. How many children do you have? Mosha Biamo. 8, 9, 10 is a risk factor for developing cancer of the cervix. So of course, women who are commercial sex workers, they are also at risk of having this cancer. Women who have unprotected sexual intercourses. So you will see that all these things, they revolve around sex. Because that is where this virus, that's how we can contact this virus, HPV virus. So what is it about this cancer? We just advise, avoid risky sexual behaviors, risky sexual lifestyles, both men and women. Let's begin to talk to our children. They should delay, they should temporize. They shouldn't start their sexual life early, because starting sex at age 10, there may be no repercussion until she's like 50 years old, until she's like 45 years old, and she may not be able to link it. That is because I started my sexual life at age 10. That is why this thing is happening to me. So let's begin to talk to them. Let's begin to educate them. Let us tell them the advantages of holding on, of zipping up. We usually say ABC. A for abstinence. Abstain if you are not yet licensed. Abstain if you are not yet married. Now, B, be faithful. Once you are licensed, once you are married, just be faithful to that partner. And if you know you cannot be faithful, if you know you cannot abstain, that you must get involved. We talk about C. And that C is correct and consistent use of condom. So that is the ABC of prevention of cancer of the cervix. Abstinence, be faithful, correct and consistent use of condom. And then there's another mode of prevention, which is vaccine. What did I call it? Vaccine. Avoid controversies. Guard your health. These vaccines have been available a very long time ago. But it's just that it's only available to the elite, to those that can afford it. It used to be very expensive. Very, very expensive. There are two types. So it's been there since. It's only people that know about it and can afford it that use it. So now, the government has now decided to inculcate it into routine immunization and make it free. And then we started hearing plenty noise. Yay, they want to make our women sterile. Oh. They don't want to make our women able to conceive. Oh. They want to control our population. Oh no. That's why I said, avoid controversies. These vaccines are preventive. And we encourage, if you have a girl child, you have a girl child, let that child take this vaccine. However, it is a girl child that is not yet sexually active. Before, they used to say from age 13 and above, or thereabout, age 12. But now, we know that age, what's a lot far. So they brought down the age from age 8, age 9. Let them take the vaccine because it is preventive. And we expect that by that age, they are not yet sexually active. So we want to catch them young and then give them this vaccine. These are some of the preventives. So what are the symptoms? Maybe you want to know the symptoms. How will I know? What does it present with? Initially, it may just be quiet or it won't tell you anything. But when it wants to start showing itself, somebody say bleeding. Bleeding. Yes. Irregular menstrual bleeding. Another bleeding. Postcoital bleeding. That means bleeding after sex. It's not normal to bleed after sex. But then you now have this intercourse. After the intercourse, you are bleeding. You are suspicious. Bleeding. Intermenstrual bleeding. We are still on bleeding, Abby. That one means that you are bleeding per vagina. When I say bleeding, it's from your vagina. It's not bleeding from your nose or your eyes or from the vagina. So intermenstrual bleeding. You are bleeding, or the person is bleeding in between menstruation. She has finished her menstruation. She's supposed to wait maybe the next 28 or the next 30, depending on the person's cycle. But she starts bleeding. We should suspect that person. Then still on this bleeding, any woman that has attained menopause, it has been confirmed that mommy was menopause, so your menstruation has said bye-bye. And then one day, you just see blood. That person should go to the hospital. So you can see the various forms of bleeding, of manifestation, or how cancer of the cervix presents. However, we know that some other diseases can present this way. But that's why we just say, go to the hospital. Let them check you. And then let them tell you that this bleeding you are having is not because of cancer of the cervix. It's because of so thing. But for you to, the person to now keep herself and say, no, I'm not going to go. Or that it is an attack. Or that bleeding is just doing its own. Or it's because of so. By the time the symptoms now start big, it may be too late. So not all those bleeding that we spoke about. Another way, and it's usually the most common, but another way it can present is that there's this very bad, very smelly vaginal discharge, like rotten egg or rotten meat, such that if the person with cancer of the cervix is standing beside you, you will run, because the person will be smelling. The vaginal discharge smells very badly. So many people have vaginal discharge, but it may not smell, or the odor may not be that bad. But this one, it is plenty, copious. It is malodorous, but it doesn't itch. Vaginal discharge, that person should visit the hospital. So one of the other things is pain. We call it pelvic pain. They just have this very bad pelvic pain that they cannot explain. Such a person should present to the hospital. And then when they get to the hospital, we will be able to say, this is what is happening, that is not what is happening. How do we investigate? How do we diagnose? There are two ways. We check the cervix. There's something we call VIA, visual inspection with acetic acid. Then there's something we call pap smear. How many of us have done pap smear ever in our life? Pap smear. In this auditorium, pap smear, nobody. Go for pap smear. Or maybe you go for VIA first. Because all of us seated here, we are eligible to go in for it. Because we are all females, we are all sexually active, we have children. Abi now? So we should go. So the VIA, what happens is that they'll just spray one chemical like this into your cervix. They will look at your cervix and say, is this cervix looking normal? Is this cervix looking suspicious? Is this cervix okay? Once they feel it's not looking suspicious, that it's looking okay, they'll tell you to go. But if they see that this cervix, I don't like the way it looks, it's looking suspicious, it's not looking normal, they'll tell you to go for a pap smear, which is a more definitive investigation. It's a more diagnostic investigation. So even if you don't want to go directly for a pap smear, please go for VIA, visual inspection. They should just inspect that your cervix. They should look at it and tell you what it looks like. How many people will promise me that very soon they will go? Either for pap smear or VIA. Thank you very much, ma. Thank you, ma. Yes. Your health is your wealth. Please go for either of these two. Either a VIA or a pap smear. So these are some of the preventive measures, the screening measures. But in all of these, apart from all those things we spoke about, your diet is important. What you eat is important, because we know that our lifestyle, apart from genetics that we have mentioned, our environment, our weight, obesity, they are all risk factors to every type of cancer. So make sure you eat well and you eat healthy. Very important. Make sure your lifestyle is a healthy lifestyle. Smoking, cigarettes, any illicit substance at all. Alcohol intake is better you stop it. High salt intake is very bad. It's a risk factor. Salt intake, spices, fatty foods, fried things, not drinking enough water. All these things are risk factors to every form of cancer. Unhealthy lifestyle, unhealthy diet. So please, take responsibility. Take charge of your health and be in control of your health. Because when that woman in the house is healthy, the whole house is healthy. When that woman in the church, in the community, in the society, in the school, anywhere is healthy, the whole church, the whole community is healthy. Take responsibility for your health. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma. Are we blessed? I saw some women sleeping.